Yeah.
Doing well, bro.
So I don't. Am I speaking over you? Let's just see how everything's going.
Okay.
Are we
Yeah.
good?
What's going on, Dan Shire? He's just in the chat. You're not watching it on a live stream, are you? You're just watching it over the Google Meet?
Yeah. No, I've just got you guys on my phone over here.
Okay, perfect. All right. So yeah, the topic is morality, and it seemed like you had some objections to the way that I was articulating morality under a secular system, under a godless system, to be more specific.
Yeah, well, look, thanks for having me. I guess if you guys are scraping the bottom of the barrel or something on, having me as a guest, but okay, here we are. I guess I was just trying to also understand. Sorry, man, I haven't watched tons of your videos, but I saw it came up a few times where you're trying to articulate your point of view. So maybe I can just say what I understood you to be saying, and you can correct me where I'm wrong on it.
Sure.
But so you were saying, and I don't know if do you guys both hold the point of view that it's what as moral realists you think that something is right or wrong regardless of how someone feels about it, how someone feels or thinks or culture or whatever. Like there is a right or wrong.
Yep, none of that's relevant.
Okay, but and look, obviously I agree with you there. So we are on the same page there with regards to what is that? Objective reality, not reality, objective reality. But I remember in the one show that I think you were doing with that one gent who also used to be a Christian, now is no longer a Christian. I think he also did some hip hop recording. And it came up also, I think in the one you did, you guys have been doing this morality thing for I don't know, has it been you haven't done it to death yet? You don't think you've done it to death yet, eh?
So yeah. Yeah. Hey, Fasad, hey, nobody, they can't hear you in the chat. Yeah. Oh.
I hear you just fine.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for letting us know. Yeah, it's the YouTube that he can't be heard. So, so, yeah, but basically, yeah, we've done morality a lot. Thing is, a lot of our guests, they'll see an episode on morality, and they're like, "Hey, I don't like this thing you said. Let's discuss it." And they'll come on and discuss that, and then somebody else see that. So that's been what's happening. So essentially, like the same situation.
Maybe we can use it as a lead-in to talk about other things. But
I'm down for that.
What I guess I was still trying to wrap my head around or just understand from your point of view is because, and I thought it was interesting, was that you mentioned how, okay, yes, so something is objectively wrong. Is that the right word? Like, as in, no matter what someone thinks, no matter which culture there is wrong, there is wrong.
Yes.
So no matter what happens, if something's wrong, it's wrong. But then I think, and I mean, do both of you fall into that category? I mean, are you both on the same
Yeah,
page
both
there?
more realistic.
More or less, okay.
Mhm.
But then I thought it was interesting. Then you mentioned that, I think it was in that show with that, like I said, I think it was the guy who does some of the hip hop recording. He used to be a Christian. Um, uh, but then you said that, but there's something about it. It only matters if you value it. It's like a kind
Oh
of
yes, yes, you right. So yeah, value. So morality is different from a moral value or just a value in particular. So like if I were to shoot you in the head, that'll kill you. It's immoral, but perhaps I don't value being moral. Perhaps I don't value your life as a human being. And if so, then I might just go ahead and do that. I don't care about being moral. But the fact that I don't care about it doesn't make it not immoral. That's what I'm saying. So
okay.
yeah, perhaps I don't care about murdering people. It's still
Yeah.
wrong.
Okay. So it's wrong if you murder people,
Mhm.
but I guess I was wondering if because it sounded and again this might just be not quite understanding that. And I mean I think um sorry guys, I mean I think is it Troubadour? I think you have
Triblet.
had to explain this the last, I don't know, like you've had to explain it like 7 or 8 dozen times in the last little bit because everyone seems to be asking on that one. But it kind of translated to me just to say that, and I think the example you used was it would always be wrong to flood the world, whatever it was, but maybe God doesn't value not flooding the world.
Yes. So yeah, this was an example I had said we had an apologist on the show, and I talked about how it was immoral to flood the earth, and he said that who am I to say what God should and shouldn't do? And I explained that I wasn't saying what God should and shouldn't do. All I was saying was what he did was immoral. Perhaps God doesn't care about being moral. The Christian God, he from what I read about him, it doesn't seem to care. He doesn't seem to care about people's well-being. He doesn't seem to care about their happiness or security, anything like that. Even like his chosen people, when he rescued them out of Egypt, what's the reason God gives? He says, "I did it for my name's sake." So at the end of the day, it was for selfish reasons. It wasn't for morals reasons. So that being the case, that God, Yahweh, does not care about being moral. So I'm not placing it all on him. I'm just saying what he does, if we were to describe it, it would be immoral because it violates well-being.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the problem that most people have is that um, people are searching for a reason behind doing something moral or not doing something immoral most of the time when they're talking about like moral systems. But I think what both of us have kind of concluded is that just like uh, Hume concluded, the is-ought problem. We say that there are a bunch of ises, that, you know, there are states of affairs that we have, and we can impact those states of affairs, and based on those states of affairs in the universe that we live in, we can determine whether they're moral or not, right? But what we can't determine is how much you value something or whether you place value upon something at all. So, for instance, if you don't have a value for other people, like if you are a genuine psychopath, so you don't have empathy, you're incapable of empathizing with other humans, then you don't care if humans get hurt, right? It's just not in. It's your brain thinks about humans the same way it thinks about inanimate objects. So I can't force you or give you a reason to care about something, but what I can say is that based on the state of affairs and how it impacts the people around you, whether it's moral or not, I can't give you a reason that all people should or shouldn't do that action. I can just tell you based on the outcome of the circumstances whether it is or is not moral.
Okay. Look, as I said, you know, I've obviously been chatting, and I mean, just to triple confirm, you guys are both atheists, or is it agnostic, or is it
I'm
agnostic atheist, or is it?
Agnostic atheist. So I distinguish the terms. So atheism for me, when I describe it, I'm talking about belief. Agnosticism is about knowledge. So, and I'm both. I'm not convinced that one could have knowledge of God if he existed, especially the way that the Christian God is described. He's omnipotent, so surely he's capable of completely hiding any evidence of his existence from a mere mortal like myself.
Okay.
But I'm also atheist, as in I don't believe.
Yeah, and that
Dawkins
I
said
guess
it
you can
well.
maybe, I don't know, chat about that later. Trying to make this like a natural segue into everything, but let's maybe just stay on topic right now. And sorry
Mhm.
for yourself. And is it fantastic? I mean, am I
Yeah,
saying how's it?
most people
or am
say
I saying?
facade, fantastic facade, fantastic either or.
Okay.
Facade. Most people say facade on the show. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, I think Richard Dawkins once said, if it was a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being I'm absolutely certain of a God that cares about me and knows everything that I do, and 7 is I'm absolutely certain that no God exists and no God could possibly exist, I'm a 6. I tend to agree with that. I'm not certain that any God exists. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying there are undoubtedly gods that have been described that aren't possible due to contradicting laws of logic and nature, and due to just obviously things like we know how thunder works, so obviously Thor does not make it. Stuff like
I
that.
think Jesus specifically, I am absolutely certain that God does not exist.
Yeah, I would.
We
I
could
would say
rule him out
there are
because
many gods I could
Jesus,
say I'm absolutely certain do not exist.
yeah,
But
Jesus would violate logic.
Depending
Look,
on your
I'm almost
definition of
feeling-
God,
I'm
I would
almost
say that
feeling too
that's
many-
a different story, though.
I'm sorry, bro, both of y'all was talking.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying, like, I feel as if just the open-ended question seems to have opened up several strands of discussion, and it's and like, are we going to close them off? I was just thinking about the morality. If you're saying that, okay, so there's something is objectively right or wrong, but your value will determine whether you will do that or not. I mean, obviously, I think most people assume or take for granted that morality does imply an ought. You know what I mean? If something is moral, you should be doing the moral thing. If something is immoral, you shouldn't be doing the immoral thing.
That's with the hypothetical imperative.
Mm.
If you care about being moral, and most people do. Most people care about themselves. There's others that they care about, friends, family. They care about the world that they live in and the people in it. And that's just the norm. Since that's the case, generally, like you find 100 people, 99 of them are going to care about being moral, at least to some extent. So that just happens to be the case. But that doesn't make the value objective. Like, values can't be objective, because value is about what you find important. That's
But again,
going to be subjective.
This is a discussion that came up with this guy that I never got quite to finish. But my problem is, obviously, yes, what you decide, how you decide to find meaning or how you decide to value stuff does vary from person to person. But there also has to be a way that we judge which is, like, what value is better than another value.
I don't think you can do that.
But
Like,
again, I mean,
what scale are you going to use? Like that's cool.
from and again, like from a moral point of view,
Mhm.
it's like there are things that we should value and there are things that we shouldn't value. Like, I shouldn't value hurting people just for the fun of it. I shouldn't value.
But that's if you care about people. What if you don't? Then you're gonna say then maybe you should care that hurt as many people as possible. That should be what you try to do.
And I guess, let me see if I can also maybe articulate what I thought was a bit of a, I don't know, I think there's maybe a bit of a contradiction within that
Okay.
definition as you've laid it out, was just the fact that, and again, now let me see, I've had how many weeks now to articulate this, and now that I have to do it, here we are, like with a bit of a pause and a breathing. But it seems as if you're almost saying, if you don't value it, or you're almost saying like it would be, sometimes it would almost be immoral to do the moral thing, because, and again, look, if I may just articulate it to maybe just say it, obviously you can tell me the the issues. But it's like, if you don't value being kind to people, is it almost going to be immoral to then be kind to people? Or as if there's a justification? It's like, well, look, you know, you don't care, or you don't feel that as if it's important to be kind. Therefore, how are you still calling it immoral then to not be
So
kind? If
so arts arts, they have to be within the context of a goal. There is no objective goal. There's a goal that you value, that you want to accomplish. And there are objectively better and worse ways to reach that goal. So if you want to reach this particular goal, you need to go this way. Like, for instance, let's say you're running a race, and how about that? You're running a race. Ought you run as fast as you can?
Okay.
Well, I'm asking, should you run as fast as you can in the race?
Yes, and I mean, obviously that follows.
Maybe. I didn't give you enough information, because what if it's a marathon? You know, sprinting, that you be gassed out in a few seconds. So maybe you shouldn't do that. So you need more information. So, like, what's the goal? Is to go to win a 40-yard dash? Is to go to run a marathon? Is to go to run 800 meters, 400 meters? It depends, and you adjust your actions accordingly in order to reach that goal. Whether that goal is moral is an entirely different question, entirely different topic. Its morality is contingent on the consequences it has to well-being. But whether it's your goal, that's subjective to you. That's how I'm distinguishing it.
Yeah. And look, I mean, look, what's been interesting is obviously having had these chats often. I mean, usually atheists appeal. Look, I'm thinking, what is it, Matt Doherty? I mean, he obviously appeals often to the idea that, you know, if we just look at how society works, that's enough to explain why we have morals, like what is right and wrong, whatever is conducive to producing a society. And obviously, I don't think that quite works, because how can we judge which societies better, like right or wrong? If there's a society where, and again, look, I mean, we've got to obviously get into hypothetical.
I'm not sure. I'm not confident that Matt Dillahunty would have said. I'm not sure that's a correct description of his position.
And look, in all fairness, I'm saying that, like, at least I'm riffing on the general idea that, like, atheists will say, you know, if we just look at what it takes to run a society well, we can tell what's right and wrong. And it's like, yeah, but then how can you judge between societies? And then obviously we get into hypotheticals. It's easier to maybe discuss hypotheticals. If there was a society that valued, you know, pedophilia, and you decided mine doesn't, how do you judge which society is doing right or wrong?
What you would look at is
if I'm just running through some of the things, which is why I'm looking for your position, because I'm obviously like, no, but then how do we tell which societies are more moral than others? And we think that we can. I mean, we look at other societies and say, look, I don't think that is. We believe that at one point in time it was evil to do that, whatever it might be, or, you know, we think it was always evil, but this society doesn't see that. We think that there's a deficiency in the society. Other atheists will appeal to, you know, the evolution of empathy and so forth. And it's like, yeah, but like, at what point in time, what tells you who to empathize with? You know what I'm saying? It seems to be like a moral question about, we look at the person who is, you know, hurting, like, I have a deep desire to hurt people, but that's immoral. Or do we look at the victims? You know, it's wrong that you got hurt. So it's like, who do we?
But you would say, but you would at least acknowledge that my system gives you an objective way to judge societies, depending which culture is more moral.
In a sense, by throwing in that, I think, and look, man, I'm just, I mean, I don't know if I'm ever going to talk to you guys ever again, except I guess on comments on YouTube. We can always get into it, typing up our, you know, ideas up like that. But I don't know if I'm still trying to get like I feel as if you want to have your cake and eat it. Like you're trying to sidestep the idea of
Do
trying
that.
to. I'm saying like you seem to be trying to sidestep the idea of having to justify why you think something is right or wrong by simply saying no, it simply is right or
No,
wrong.
that's not what I'm saying. So, all right. So it is good if it's more. When we say right and wrong, let's say more. Like for the context of the situation, when we say right, generally we're speaking about what's moral, and what's wrong is generally what's
Yeah.
immoral, right? Okay. So what's right is what contributes to well-being. What's wrong is what detributes to well-being.
And
Now,
again, I mean, look, kind of your definition, because now anyway, yeah, let me hear you just speak about it.
yeah.
Because,
So
like,
I think
when we first went at this, I mean, I went through all of that. Like, I just feel as if evolution can't account for it, society can't account for it. We always
evolution
seem
is
to.
irrelevant.
I'm saying, I feel as if, you know, whenever I've engaged with atheists, they've always come at a point where either they have to deny that there is something objective, and it's
We
up to
don't do
the
that. Right.
and you're not doing all of those things.
Mhm.
But then you're still making some appeal to some subjectivity because it's what you value. And then it seems as if what you value, whether or not you're going to be moral or not.
No.
Yeah.
So your values have no impact on morality. All right. So you may not value being moral. That doesn't change the moral status of an act. Let's say you don't care about people, and so you want to go around pillaging, plunder, raping, and stealing, and all that type of stuff, and that's what you value. All right. If that's your goal, there are objectively better and worse ways to get there. If the goal it was to make the earth as awful of a place as possible, then what Hitler was doing is a good way to get there. Right? That doesn't make it moral. It's not moral. But if that's his goal is to make an awful reality, then what Hitler was doing is one of the quickest ways to get there. That's what we're talking about. So my moral system is entirely ontological. You may not care about being moral, but the morality still applies. So the values are completely separate. You have a society that may not care about anything. You can still objectively evaluate the morality of that society's actions and practices.
Only if you value morality, and if you
No.
don't,
Whether you value it, it doesn't matter. So let's say neither one of us value morality, neither one of us, and then you rob Facade, you go and chop his head off. Neither one of us care about being moral. I can still evaluate whether it was good for Facade to get his head chopped off, and then say it's immoral. Just like in the same way that a physician could come and evaluate whether your actions of chopping his head off was good for his health, I can analyze the situation and evaluate whether it was good for his well-being. Because health is one of the prongs of well-being, the most obvious one.
by your definition of it,
Yes.
which may or may not be correct.
Well, I mean, it's not a correct definition. That's not how definitions work. It's not like there's some intrinsic definition and you can use the wrong one.
Yeah,
But-
now we're getting. I can't even remember. Sorry, guys. My kind
I'm
of
good.
just throwing out. But yeah, but it just so there's no intrinsic definition. So there's no real definition to what is right or wrong. But we can still
No.
judge it.
No. So no, that's you're conflating things. So reality is. That's just the way things are. Like for instance, like the moon. It's just the object, right? It's the thing, and then we can use words to describe it, right? We can call it a sphere, and we can say it's a moon because it orbits a planet, orbits the sun indirectly, vicariously through a planet, right? And so therefore it's a moon and not a planet, because planets have to be on the same plane and orbit directly to a star and have to receive hydrostatic equilibrium, like all these sorts of things, right? And we have words to just describe those things. I'm just using there's a particular state of affairs that I'm concerned about, and one of the ways I can describe that is with the word health. And health is one of the ways I can describe well-being. There's no so even a dictionary doesn't prescribe usage; it describes usage.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Yeah,
that was the end of that.
yeah. I realized.
Mhm.
I guess I'm just saying it just seems as if it's a matter of you saying yes, look, something is right or wrong. If it matches my definition of health or whatever it is, then it's good, and if it doesn't, then it's bad. But it just
Yeah, I
feels
mean, it's the definitions ultimately that was what makes a system. Just like it's like, what's the difference between basketball and football? Like, it's the rules, right? You have to describe the rules. That's what differentiates one system from another one. It like the words you're using to describe it, and then if there's some confusion on what a word means, then we can talk about that.
so.
But that doesn't, and words don't need intrinsic meanings for morality to work.
Okay, so but something is right or wrong. I guess I'm just looking because your morality or what is right or wrong does depend on how you define what human flourishing is.
Yeah, and I can define that for you. So I have these prongs, right? I have health, wealth.
You had a few times, yeah. And
Yeah.
and you define wealth as access to
access to resources,
rather than you know what I mean.
Like the books on your shelf, your clothing, all that stuff. That is part of wealth.
Okay, what is my issue? Like what? And look, I mean, look, I guess you've actually given it a bit more thought than I think someone who's appealing just to societal norms, evolution, or you know what I mean, like subjective. Because I always figured that without God, there are only like 3 ways that you can really get to what is right or wrong. And it was either government.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I'm just saying. So it was either government, they tell you what's right or wrong, but that's what's legal and illegal. We know that fails because, like as I went through in the comments already, something can be legal but immoral, or something can be immoral but legal. You know what I mean? There are ways and means.
Did you go? Can I ask you about your educational background? Did you go to a Christian school, a seminary, something like that?
Nah. At our point, it was government school back in the. I think I'm much older than you, gents. I graduated in 97 from high school. I ended up accidentally, and this is going on tangents here. I don't know if I've said anything worthwhile just with regards to the morality of everything. But okay, high school graduate, I kind of accidentally got a degree through correspondence. We have like UNISA out the side, University of South Africa. It's still in the 1500 universities in the world rankings and stuff.
Gotcha.
But I know that generally, like in the, I don't know, like US and Canada, correspondence degrees are not really looked at as anything. I know that's not usually the way that one gets and everything. It was it ended up being a 3-year degree. It took me 10 years to get just through doing it really for interest's sake. It was actually in ancient history and classical culture. And then
the reason, the reason I had to ask, because you said you were taught that without God, there's only like a few ways that you could describe morality, that a moral system.
It wasn't so much me taught. It's just that when I'm looking at it, like I'm saying, where do we get morality from? If there is no God, and honestly, it seemed to break down that like either, and this is generally like the 3 ways that it can like come up. And you've obviously offered a 4th one, and that's where we get to that. So it's either government tells you what's right and wrong. So what's illegal is immoral, what's legal is moral. But we know that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's legal positivism.
Adultery is legal, but most of us will agree that it's immoral. And again, but now you might then say, but no. But if you don't value it, then okay, I can't hold you to that standard because you don't value it. Which then makes me question the question. But then, what's the point of morality if you can't hold someone to it? But then it was government or society or culture. What one culture deems is right or wrong. That's how, or like the general consensus that leads us to morality. That also doesn't work because we seem to judge different cultures, as we were saying. if there's a culture out there that's saying that women aren't allowed to drive, and we
Yeah.
think that there's something intrinsically wrong
But
with that.
those
Or-
aren't our positions.
I know. I'm just running through. This is my usual positions. Or
Okay.
it comes down to the individual, and then he doesn't. I mean, that doesn't work either, because then if I deem that it's okay to murder, then it's okay for me, but it's not okay for you. And I'm just saying it's interesting that you presented the fourth position, which is saying no, it simply is moral or immoral. That's just how it is. It's just there. It's almost like a
No. I'm not saying it's just simply immoral. You're looking at the way it contributes to well-being. Like I'm not a deontologist. Like I'm not saying an act is just inherent. Like I don't think lies are just immoral and that's it. A lie can or cannot be moral. It may or may not be moral. It depends on how it contributes. Like,
but we can usually find universals. Like we can say it's never okay to torture a baby for fun.
Sure.
I mean, at a more, I would almost say it's never okay to lie just for selfish gain. I mean, so you can always find like these kind of ways to make any of these points kind of universal, where we can, okay, we all agree on that. Now, it might not be immoral to lie to save a person's life, but it would be immoral to lie to, escape responsibility for something that you did do that you have to actually own up to.
Sure.
And again, I mean, people can then debate around those, but most of us can land on it. I mean, I think the easiest, and it is a bit shocking, but we say it's always wrong to torture a baby for fun. And I mean, you're saying I'm saying it's always wrong to torture a baby for fun, kind of full stop. But you're just saying
why
it's always wrong to torture a baby for fun because it doesn't contribute to the well-being of what human flourishing.
Of the baby? Yeah. So if we can talk about humanity, in particular, the baby. I don't think the baby benefits from being tortured. Therefore, it's immoral.
And
but you're basing. Are you basing it on God?
Yeah, I would say. Look,
so God can torture babies and do it morally.
Now, again, I guess, and I think always where we end up going. My question is: so what makes it wrong to impede human flourishing? What makes it wrong? Like, is it just is wrong?
Yeah. So that is.
I must take it on faith that it's wrong to do that.
No.
I mean, I know.
No. So okay, what makes a foot 12 inches? Just think about that. It's perfectly analogous, right?
That is. We use centimeters. No, I'm just.
I forget where you were. Yeah, you probably don't use the English system.
I know 12 inches is about 30 centimeters, but don't you hate it when people? And I was trying to do it earlier as well. They jump on your illustration and they're trying to pull apart your illustration when you're like, no, the illustration's not the point. It's just trying to get me to the point.
Yeah.
What I mean? I
yes.
try not to do it. Okay.
And so I love the way you describe the foot as 30 centimeters instead of 12 inches.
More or less. But now, if I may say, what makes it 12 inches is that for whatever reason, you guys are still holding to that arbitrary way that we've decided this is an inch, a foot is 12 inches. And I don't know, guys, that's as far as I know. I don't know yards. I don't know.
I was going to say, that's the definition.
Yeah.
So like the definition of a foot is something that is 12 inches, right? And so when I use the word morality, the definition is like something is moral if it contributes to well-being. So if you say, like, I gave some money to a homeless person, and you say that contributed to well-being, in my mind, I'm hearing that was moral. That we have said the same thing.
But if I may ask, so are you saying it's just an axiom? It's just how the universe works.
No, it's that's the definition. So there is a state of affairs that I am concerned about, and we could talk and there's different ways to describe that. And that state of affairs, broadly speaking, could be described as well-being. And one of the things that contributes to that state of affairs is the health of someone. And
yeah, I don't know if
Go
you're going to get anywhere, because like the more we speak, it more like just sounds as if you guys are just saying this is moral because it is. This is moral because it is.
No, it's not. It's more because it is. It's
Maybe I
because
can jump
whether
in here and we can go a different direction to maybe help clarify.
When I'm repeating back what I've heard you say, but that means am I not hearing it properly?
Maybe
you know what I
we're
mean?
just not describing it properly. So for instance, like what we do is we look at, like, when we're talking about morality, we're talking about the system, which you've obviously listened to AAA describe on multiple occasions, right? So when I'm talking about this idea, that's what I mean, right? So when I say something is moral, it is contributive to the well-being of another individual, therefore it's a moral act, right? And something is immoral if it hinders or takes away from the well-being of another person, right? And so what we're saying by doing this is we're giving a state of affairs, and then we're basing actions and interactions off of the outcome of, like, what happens thereafter. So if I take a brick and I throw it down on my foot, or I throw it down on another person's foot, I can look at how the universe operates and say, because of gravity, because of the weight of the brick, because of the fragility of bones in the human foot, I'm likely going to cause physical harm to you, right? So now we've taken, whether I intended to or not, I've broken your foot with a brick, right? Is that act moral or not? Well, we can determine whether it's moral or not based on whether it contributed to well-being or not. That's all we're saying. Now, what we're saying, what you can't say is, I didn't intend to do it, or I intended to do it, or I should value your foot and your health and well-being because for some reason in the ether, right? But what you can determine is whether the act is moral or not. And when we were talking, and I wanted to get to it a little earlier, but I didn't want to cut either of you off, is you were talking about, like, societies and how you would say, like, a society that, like, set up pedophilia, for instance, right? How would you determine that society as being, you know, worse than a society that doesn't value pedophilia? Well, the answer is, if your goal is to have a more moral society, then you would determine that the society that does not allow for pedophilia is more moral than the other society. But if your goal is to just create a society and you don't have a goal of being more moral, then pedophilia probably isn't even the first thing on the list of things you're going to look for, right? You're just looking for a group of people that are self-sustaining in an area. That defines a society very generally, right? So if your goal is to create a more moral society, then sure. But that's a goal that you have to have outside of whether something is moral or not. Because whether it's moral or not can be determined by the actions that the pedophile is taking upon a child. That makes it really easy. We can determine whether it's more moral or not just by looking at the outcomes of well-being from the actions that are taken. But whether if your goal is to make a society, like, I don't know if you've ever read a Clockwork Orange, right? But it's a hypothetical dystopian future in which, like, people are out murdering and raping and doing whatever they want, right? If that's your goal, then there's no reason that doing those things is bad for that goal. But whether they're moral or not is a different question. Whether they're moral will is determined by that, you know, the well-being thing.
But again, okay, I guess it just feels as if, are we making a progress? As you Tribulate, you've actually just folded your hands and sat back in your chair.
No, I mean, like, I would amen everything that he said.
I guess also what I would say then, like, it's almost also by your definition, that if it's about the well-being, now it almost seems as if accidents or, you know, doing something that you didn't intend, but it actually had a harmful effect, then that whole process was immoral because
Still
it didn't
immoral.
contribute to.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying again, maybe I'm not filtering it right. So you're saying that even if I had no intention to hurt you, I was immoral to do it that way because You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
dropped the book
perhaps you didn't. Perhaps you had. That's what the saying goes. Like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and it may be the case that you desire to help someone, but by doing that, you're actually doing harm. Or maybe you have like amoral intentions. Like perhaps you walk out of a bar, you're totally drunk, and your goal is just to go home, and you get in your car and you run somebody over, and you don't even remember doing it. You're immoral.
Mm. Yeah, no, look, my whole thing is like driving drunk is immoral. Like you shouldn't
Right.
even be driving. You're
we-
incapacitated or whatever it is. You shouldn't be putting yourself in that situation where those are the outcomes. And I mean, obviously, what you're describing seems to be very close to utilitarianism, but you're not quite utilitarianists. I remember you actually had that discussion, I think, in the last ethical, discussion that you had with your last guest, who was obviously, I think, a lot more informed on the particular definitions than I am. So what are some of my issues is that okay, the other question I might have just with regards to your system, does that extend, is it only for humans that this
It's for
definition can be?
sentient. It's about sentience. So
Well,
like I could apply to AI.
Maybe I'd ask you to clarify what you mean by that before you go into a definition, because
Okay, sure.
and the reason
Yeah, look-
the reason I wanted to do that is because if you mean is the system that we're setting up for humans, in the sense of like I shouldn't torture animals and kill them and eat their meat versus like a lion shouldn't, then a lion isn't capable of thinking about morality. But if you're talking about like, oh, there's a potential sentient creature in some other galaxy, in some other dimension, that kind of thing. Sorry, so just wanted to clarify.
What I guess I'm trying to say is I'm asking you, do you believe that animals can be moral? Because if morality is this thing that is intrinsic into the universe,
Hmm.
wouldn't it then apply to all species everywhere, or does it only apply to the human species?
Sentience. So if the species is sentient, sure. And so that raises the question you're probably going. So why don't we throw a lion in prison for eating a antelope or something like that? Is that where you're going?
Along those lines, but a bit more like, because here's the other thing with regards to the the evolutionary explanation for morality, which I think which we agree doesn't work. But it's just that, I mean, eating of young and rape are prevalent.
Yeah, that happens
throughout
all throughout the animal kingdom.
all the way from insects all the way through to higher primates. So the question obviously is like, why did it suddenly become magically evil for
I would-
humans to do that?
So
You-
let's get away from the term evil.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I don't use the term, but I use it under specific circumstances. It's not a one-for-one comparison with immoral. Like there are some things that I would say are not evil but immoral.
Obviously, like, what is this? And this would be from like American courtroom dramas. May I redirect then? Your Honor, permission to redirect. So again, I'd say, why does it suddenly become immoral for humans to do that to other humans when animals do that to them, to each other all the time?
It didn't suddenly become immoral. So remember, when we talk about morality, what it makes something moral, how it contributes to a sentient life's well-being, right?
Okay.
So now,
But
Go
that's my question. That's my question, is because, for example,
I was getting ready to elaborate on that.
I'm just saying, rape has been observed all the way up to higher primates. Our closest evolutionary cousins
Yeah,
are observed. So
humans
why is
rape
it,
too.
why is it not immoral for them? Why is it immoral for us to do it, but it's not immoral for them to do it?
I would say it is. I would say it is.
Okay, so you do think that it's immoral for animals to behave the way that they behave, even though it's
in certain instances, it depends on what they're doing. So, like, yes, but they're like, because if we're going to say that, well, we can't say it's immoral because it's natural.
Yeah,
That's a poor argument, because a lot of the things that humans do are natural. War is totally natural. Like it's a natural thing for humans to do. Animals do it.
if I may say, this is what's so refreshing, I guess, about this, even though it's almost so new to me, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. It's refreshing to hear guys admit that we can't appeal to, the natural world to evaluate morality. Because as I've
Right.
said, I mean, eating of young is, again, prevalent, been observed insects all the way to higher primates. So again, on that system, how does it become magically immoral? So
It's not
interesting. So
magically immoral. So like it. So when we talk about, like, for instance, like when a male lion takes over another pride, the first thing he goes, he finds the old lion's cubs, as he kill them all.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So is it good for a little cub to be killed?
Well,
Is
obviously
it
not for the kid.
not for the cub, right?
Did I say kid?
Yeah, where you say kid. Yeah, but it's not good
Yeah.
for the cub. There you go. That answers your questions. Now, what should we do about that? Well, probably nothing. Probably nothing.
Because
We as humans probably shouldn't interfere with that. We might go in and start making things worse. So, but that is just because animals operate on different values doesn't mean that morality changes.
okay, which is, look again, but like you can't really give me a reason for why we can't. Well, actually, you have. You said, listen,
It's
if that's
analytic.
not, like if it's not your value, then you can behave immorally, and that's fine. But you're not quite saying it's fine. You're just saying that that's just how it is, and then there's no appeal to what we should do or shouldn't do because that's just how we are. And if
Well,
I
no,
don't
no.
value
I would say so. I would say, like, there are things that we should and shouldn't do, but that's based on the assumption that you care about being moral. Like, so if you were to ask me, should you donate to charity, I would say yes, that's something you should do. That's based on the assumption that you're a fellow human being with a lot of the same values that I have. That's based on that assumption, and sometimes that assumption can be wrong, and sometimes it is the case. That's fine. So
So-
we had a guy on his channel who came out and said that he would rape someone if it meant saving the human race,
yeah.
because he valued humanity more than humanity as a whole than
And-
this one individual.
And then on your system, it's saying that's still immoral, but the value is the justification for the immoral behavior.
No. So just your value doesn't make something justified. That's because then I can say, oh, I value killing
Yeah.
Jews, therefore the Holocaust is justified. No.
It does seem as if it's a bit of a justification because you said,
Nah.
well, on your value system, it's important
It is
that
not.
you that you do
No.
this.
No. So justified immoralities come about as a result of our limitations in contributing to well-being, right? So now there was a guy on our channel a few months ago. He said that the flood was a justified immorality. I pointed out that can't be the case. God is omnipotent. He's not capable of committing justified immoralities, because justified immoralities are the result of our limitations of contributing to well-being. Think about this. Let's say there's a guy in a school. He's in there. He's a school shooting. He's shooting up kids. Now, I'm a human being. I'm a cop, right? And I can't like snap my fingers and make the shooter go away. I can't like go in there and take him down softly and gently, make sure like there's not a lot of options available to me. Pretty much, I'm gonna have to run in there and kill him. I'm gonna have to kill the shooter. I'm gonna have or at least shoot him. I'm gonna have to run in there and commit great atrocity to stop him. But it needs to be done because what he's doing is a great detribution to well-being. So that is what makes it justified, because of the limitations that are on me. But let's say I'm God and I can just do this and I can make the shooter go away. Then in that case, going in and shooting the killer wouldn't be justified because I just killed him unnecessarily. There was no reason for me to do that. I could have just
Okay. No. Look, I can kind of see how you're trying to track that, but again, at the same time, it seems to be the end result. I mean, either you have to shoot the shooter, or God makes him disappear. Either which way,
You can he doesn't have to disappear from reality. He could. I mean, he could just make the gun vanish. He could turn into. You ever seen the End Game, Infinity War, or whatever, when Thanos snapped his fingers and he turned that guy's gun into a bubbles. Like God could do something like that. What I'm saying, like, he doesn't have to erase them from reality. But there are things that I can't do. Like I'm going to have to do something violent to stop him. God wouldn't.
But remember, on your system, whatever God values it makes kind of what he's doing. What are you saying? Your value can make sense of what happens, but or that it makes it okay to do it. You're not saying it makes it okay to do it.
No. So because your values is going to determine what you do, and your values is basically just your goal. And you and I may not have the same goal.
Are there moral and immoral values?
Yeah, like if you value killing people, like for instance, like Hitler's value was immoral.
So haven't you collapsed values into morality anyway? And like now we're leaving, and now we're at like a place where
no, but then in that case, morality now becomes subjective. But the Holocaust is just whether it's moral. The moral status of the Holocaust was now a matter of opinion.
And you're saying, and again, what we agree on? No. Even if the Germans had won, even if everything we read, even if the whole world spoke German now, no offense to any German listeners, we're just talking about World War II here. It would still have been wrong. It would still have been evil, even if everyone thought it was not evil.
Yes, because it doesn't. If I chop your head off, you're going to be harmed. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what happens in reality. In reality, you will be harmed.
Okay. And the axiom simply is human flourishing is moral.
It's not an axiom. No. It's not an axiom. It is a definition.
It is a definition, but
yes,
like you're saying.
So when I talk about talk about morality, what's moral is what contributes to well-being. I'm not saying that you ought to adopt this system.
That's just how it is. That's just how it is. What moral contributes to well-being, that's just how it is. That's just the rule, the axiom, the definition.
So
where does this come from?
So all right. So
when I say let me do this one. You know what a book is?
Yeah, I might live in Africa, but you know what books are, yeah.
Got a bunch of them behind you, right? Generically, there's a bunch of books behind you. So when I say the word book, something pops into your head, right? You think about pages and ink and bindings and typically a cover, sometimes like a dust cover on them. Like you have this idea of what a book is in your head, right? What AAA is presenting forward is the idea that morality is well-being. So when we talk about morality, it's like when you talk about a book, you think about pages, you think about ink, you think about what this thing is. Morality is well-being, and we can judge morality based on how well-being is impacted in the actual universe that we share. When you think of a book, you think of a certain thing. When we talk about books, we talk about certain things. When we're talking about morality, for the purpose of the discussion of talking about morality, if you want to use AAA and my definition of it, we're talking about well-being. And so anytime we're talking about that, that's the term we want to use. Now, if you have a different definition of morality, we can have a conversation using that definition. But when going into a conversation, if we have different definitions of the word, we need to agree upon some definition of usage. That way we can have an intellectual conversation and progressive thoughts about that conversation. So when AAA and I posit our definition of morality, if you're willing to accept that and use that definition throughout the conversation, anytime you apply the word morality anywhere, you could substitute well-being. Like, is it conducive to well-being? Is it detrimental to well-being? And then that would determine... That's how you determine whether something is moral or immoral.
And I'm just saying. So if it is well-being, is is that just are you saying it's just how the universe works? Is that when we contribute to well-being, that's moral, and when we hinder well-being, that's immoral? Is that just how the universe works?
Not
Is it
what we're defining is a term. So it's not just how the universe works. That when I say the word book, when that sound comes out of my mouth, that doesn't magically apply to the things that are behind your shelves. It's a description. Those things behind your shelf, the things on your shelf, the word we use for that is book. And so, say it again.
It's just a description, is what you're saying.
Yes. It's just a description. So that's why I say it's analytic. It's an analytic proposition. I am just defining a term.
You're just defining the term.
Yes.
Yes. Is how it is.
Yeah, that descriptor is of the state of affairs of the universe as they are. Right? Like your current state of affairs, it seems that your appendages are attached, your head is working, you're conscious, you're talking to us. If somebody came in and broke into your house and whacked you with a pan on the back of the head and knocked you out unconscious, that would change the state of affairs. And we could determine, because being unconscious and getting knocked unconscious is bad for your health, that is an immoral act.
Should we? Okay. No, I'm just trying to think. Because again, it's just like you. It seems if you're just taking. Well, I don't know. Are you just taking for granted that this is what morality is, or
no?
Are
you taking for granted that a book are those things that's behind you?
For granted, or it's what we've been taught, what we've been shown?
I'm asking, are you taking it for granted?
I guess. Look, I mean, like I said, that's like
It's just defining of like, because I'm not concerned about what word we use. Like you could, like instead of morality, you could say, I don't know, bubbly. And now all of a sudden, I want my daughter to be a bubbly person when she grows up, and I can describe what I mean by bubbly. It's an act that contributes to well-being, and what's well-being, health, blah 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 blah. And those are bubbly things. And I could say what God did in the Bible is oftentimes unbubbly. Like I'm not concerned about the word we use. Like I'm concerned about the actual state of affairs that the word is describing.
Okay. And look, again, I think that it just seems as if, like I said, you seem to have just started like sidestep the justification for morality by simply saying, no, this simply is moral and this simply is not moral. Let's just move on from there, because usually atheists have got the issue of not being able to define why something is moral or not really.
It's just a defining. So
it either collapses into, as you said, absolute subjectivity, which you're trying to avoid. I think it's an interesting, maybe rhetorical move, because to also define morality simply as well-being. Who gets to define what well-being is? Well, we have these criteria, and you know what I mean. And I find it interesting that you're saying that yes, animals. I guess what you're saying is that animals, yes, are immoral by our standards of immorality, but because they don't hold our values, we can't really call it. We can't expect them to, be moral as we are.
So a lot of in our context, when we talk about it, and when we talk about morality in humans, it may not make sense to talk about to describe a lion eating an antelope as immoral. It may not make sense for our context. It may not even be relevant, and I would say it isn't. But if we're still defining morality as that what contributes to well-being, obviously being eaten by a lion isn't good for any sentient creature. So we can still call it immoral.
Again, humans, it just seems weird calling what animals do immoral. But again, what we would say is that what we see animals doing, if humans were to do it, it would be immoral. Is kind of like where we usually land up on,
Yeah, and that's not how I used to. I mean, like I watched this documentary a few years ago. It was these two lions, and they were going around killing a lot of times other animals, but also other lions. They weren't eating them. They was just killing. It was they were essentially just serial killers. It's like they were killing just for fun. They wouldn't eat them. It was just they were like getting enjoyment out of killing. That I'd say that's immoral. Well, are we gonna throw the lions in jail? No. What are we gonna do about that? Well, nothing.
But then, I mean, that would ask questions about can one species police another species? You know what I mean?
I'm not That's what I'm saying. Because like I'm not policing anybody. So that's and that's
other lions policing other lions.
no. That remember, the system is entirely descriptive, so there's no policing involved. Just like I'm not policing God when I say it's immoral for him to flood the earth. I'm not saying what he should and shouldn't do. If the lion wants to survive and he does value his survival, what he should do is eat other animals. That's how he's going to survive. Whether eating other animals contributes to their well-being is a different question.
Again, I would again go with the more, obvious issues of eating of young and, like, as I said, rape in the animal kingdom. Those seem to contribute to the well-being because guess what? Animals, I mean, that's how they propagate, and
No. So that's a utilitarian approach, and that's what I'm not for. That's why, like, and you could make the case that I was going to say that you could make the case that maybe the earth would have had some net benefit if they had accomplished their goals in the Holocaust. It wouldn't matter.
It would still be wrong.
Yes, because the Holocaust at minimum wasn't good for Jews. I would say it wasn't good for anybody. But at minimum, even if it was only one person, if in the Holocaust it only killed one person, it would have been immoral because it wasn't good for that person. This is why I'm not a utilitarian.
Okay. Now maybe taking a step back. So the rule is it should what is the rule that says that it's good for people to flourish? Like, where does that come from? Is that just simply
I'm not sure. So I don't think me or Facade has mentioned the word flourishing this entire time.
Okay, sorry.
I haven't used it.
Okay, but you are talking about human access. How did you define it? Like with your 4 pillars? It wasn't.
I said health, wealth, security, happiness, safety, and then I had the caveat that there are other things that I may have not considered, but everything that I can think of fall within one of those prongs.
And how do you group all of those together under what title?
So that's what constitutes well-being, because that's what makes up your experience. Yes, so it's about your it is about your experience. And I'm go ahead.
So excuse me, it was well-being rather than flourishing, which I think is now maybe a matter of semantics. But okay.
Well, still, I mean, like, I'm not opposed to flourishing, but it was something that you had mentioned, and like, it's not a word that I've said once.
Well,
fair enough. Sorry, I think I've been computing your well-being as human flourishing, and again, I mean, that's often a term that's thrown around as a definition.
I want humans to flourish. I would say that's a good thing.
But
it's good that the standard of living has gone up. Go ahead, Fazad. I think
I was going to say there is a pretty good and notable distinction in which I think neither of us use flourishing versus well-being, and that if you just use especially human flourishing, you could justify a lot of you could attempt to justify a lot of immoral actions by just saying it's good for human productivity or flourishing. For instance, if your goal is for humans to flourish, then you could potentially justify things like forced artificial insemination or rape, because humans would undoubtedly spike in population.
That's what I was going to say. This just kind of goes to utilitarianism, which again I am not.
Which is strange because again, and look, as I said, if I'm missing the nuances here, it seems because we could easily just say, but it's good for the well-being of humanity. And now,
so it's like you're treating humanity as a monolith, and what I'm looking at are individuals. Humanity is a conglomeration of a bunch of individuals, and so perhaps let's say you, Liam, are a detriment to society, and human flourishing would increase exponentially if you no longer exist. And would it be moral to kill you?
And obviously, you're saying no.
In my system, no.
Okay. So under your system, there's never any justification, for killing. Like
No, yeah. There's definitely justifications for killing. But remember the example that I gave with the school shooting.
Yeah. Okay, I was just, guys, I don't even know how much I've even contributed to this conversation, just overall looking at some of the ones that we've touched on, you know what I mean? But it still just seems, if you take it for granted, that human well-being is a good thing, full stop. We can't really explain why it's good thing. We just know that it is a good thing.
No,
What are you appealing to? You're just you're just saying that it is, and it simply is.
No, I'm not saying that it is. So remember, like there's it's analytic. There's a proposition that I'm making, and so there's those prongs. If you notice them, they're what constitute your experience. If we talk about your experience of your livelihood, of the way you're existing, there's a limited number of ways that it could be affected. One of the ways are your health, right? So if you had a headache, that would affect your well-being, right? If you were, let's say you didn't have, if I were to steal your jacket, now you'd be a little cold, right? So I've affected your wealth, and I may have also affected your health, because you might get sick from being cold, right? So all of these things contribute to your experience. That is what I'm concerned about, and that's why I draw the line of morality with sentience, because rocks don't experience, so we don't care about a rock's well-being because it doesn't have any.
It's still this. Sorry, guys. I guess what I'm struggling with is to find out what the grounding is. So you're simply saying that our experience should be
reality
good,
is the grounding.
Yeah. No, like this, the morality, grounding the morality is, we want everyone's experience to be good, and it's moral for it to be good. And,
no, remember. Okay, we're wrong. So, like you said, I want everybody's experience to be good. Yeah, that's what I want, but that's irrelevant. What I want does not matter. What we're just talking about what is. So, for instance, flooding the earth, regardless of my goals, is immoral, because it's not good for people to drown. It's not good for their well-being. It violates their well-being. It violates their health and their wealth and their security and all that type of stuff by dying. So whether or not I value that, or whether or not I think their existence is a good thing, is totally irrelevant.
Okay, so if it's totally irrelevant, where does it almost sounds to me, and again, now, like I don't know if I have to go and rewatch, and I didn't get enough of a chance to watch the videos, but it's like, if it's all irrelevant, it's almost as if we're saying it's this is moral, but it's irrelevant that it's moral.
No, what I said was irrelevant was what I think about it, my value. It doesn't matter. It's like you described it accurately at the beginning, actually more accurately than you're doing right now. And you talked about how the way we feel about something does not matter. It doesn't matter to the moral status of it. But that's what I was saying is irrelevant. The way you feel about it.
But it almost seems as if, like, the more we've spoken, the fact that, if you don't value morality, it all becomes irrelevant anyway. And you don't have a way to maybe move people from this is how it is to how it should be, because
we do. So now we talk about, so it sounds like you're asking, how do we get people to be moral? How do we get people to care about being moral? Right? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm trying to get to a place of where the should come into all of this, because so
you can't get there. You can't get there. We've talked about ad nauseum on the last 2 episodes. Okay. You cannot get it is from an alt. I'm sorry, you can't get an alt from an is.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So you're gonna need a value, right? So you have a system when you can objectively evaluate the actions of people and how they contribute to well-being. Now you have a value. You care about humanity, or you care about sentience. And now you can look at this system and look at the is's. What does this do? What are the consequences? And you can make judgments about what you should do and how that contributes to your goal of humanity.
But is there any way? And then, do you judge which goals are better or worse? I don't think if you've
That's entirely subjective. So like for instance, like you got one person who's tricked.
May I ask? So but you're trying to say that we can objectively say whether a goal is right or wrong?
No,
you can't. So if a person's
that's not
goal,
what I said.
no, I'm asking. So are we able to? So we can't judge whether a goal is moral or immoral, because the goals and values that's something.
Okay,
else.
yeah, okay. So yes, you can. Yes, you could. I thought you were asking which goal is better. All right. So yes, you can determine whether a goal is immoral or not based on how that goal contributes to well-being. If your goal is to murder Facade, then you can say that that's an immoral goal because it violates itself.
But you've just said that you can't tell whether a goal is better or worse than another goal. So the goal to murder.
Yeah, well, because I didn't know what you meant. I didn't know what you meant.
The guy with the beard is he the like everything falls on you? Facade is that
everyone hates me. It's fine.
I tend to talk more, but I mean, but for Facade, like I said, earlier when he was going, he went off like 5 minutes, and I said I amen to everything he said. That's why I was leaning back. Like he literally said everything that I would have said, just used like slightly different words.
I wasn't sure if Facade was the adjudicator.
Oh no.
No,
here, you know.
So, but maybe I think if it's okay with you, we move to a different direction. Because it seems kind of like we're stuck here, and that we've been stuck here, and that we've not moved a lot in the past hour.
Yeah, I like to get to your moral system.
Well, I want to go even more specific, if I can, because you said early on, and correct me if I'm mistaken, that you think that that morals or morality is objective, correct?
Yeah, like there is like so, as everyone saying, the Holocaust was objective. Well, again, I might be if I'm misusing definitions sometimes, but the Holocaust was wrong no matter what. No matter who won, no matter what they said, Holocaust was wrong. Yeah.
Perfect. And your moral system comes from a deity of some sort. Is that also correct?
I think all morality comes ultimately from the nature of God. I mean, if we are going to get into it, because I was wondering when. I can't believe we've been chatting for like over an hour already.
Yeah.
Have we said anything?
No.
Have we said anything different than you?
No.
You know what I mean? And and it seems if I still don't quite get it. It seems if I still don't quite understand how you're going.
I think the hang up you have is that you're looking for that ought reason, and this is where I wanted to kind of go in the direction of yours and kind of ask a couple questions if I could. Like, why ought I to...
Just before that, and please do. I mean, that's the whole idea. I was surprised that we stood this long just on me asking most of the questions. I'm a bit more like there seems to be this rule that human, and I want to say flourishing, but it's not the right word. Human
sentient well-being. So that's what we would say. Yeah, well-being.
It's well-being, not as a monolith, but as individuals.
Yeah.
That their well-being is good.
Well. So
it's the standard.
It's more like
standard.
If the for instance, the peak of well-being, the absolute pinnacle or epitome of well-being, is like the standard, and things that contribute to that move us closer to that standard, right? So like we have this standard in mind of well-being.
And those are moral, and anything that hinders that is immoral.
Right, anything that detracts from that is immoral. And so, like, I think where you're still kind of hung up in is why, like, why should people do moral things, or like, what is the reason behind? And the reason I kind of wanted to go the direction of yours, and the reason that I kind of went and asked, like, I was asking a couple questions about a deity, is because, like, and don't take it pedantically, but why should I care what your God thinks about morals?
Why should you care what God thinks about
like,
morals?
Like, why should
Okay.
I care at all? Like, let's pretend, like, whatever God you believe in, I'm not sure. You can define him if you'd like. You can go into that. But no matter what it is, let's assume for just a second, I'm gonna separate myself from. Well, I have a suspension of disbelief, right? I'm gonna pretend whatever God you believe in is real. Why should I care about whatever God you believe in's moral system?
Okay, and I am going to answer that now, promise. I guess I was just going back to the fact is who or what says that human well-being is good? We've
Well,
just
we're-
decided
we're
that, we've
looking
just
at-
acknowledged that, we've just observed that.
So we're
That's just
looking
how
at
it is.
we're looking at the universe itself and sentient creatures. So human experience and sentient creatures experience, and we can determine based on the tenets of well-being whether something is good for it or not. So we've determined things like happiness, health, wealth, etc. But like what we can do is look objectively at the universe and say whether something is good or bad contributing to that or detrimental to that.
Look, let's move away and let me maybe put me under the microscope a bit now. I guess my issue is you still seem to be taking a lot of stuff for granted without being able to justify it. And I don't know if
We did. So we just
No, no.
it's just a definition. Like, how do you justify that a foot is 12 inches? There's no justification. That's what the word means. When we talk about a foot, we're talking about something that is equal to 12 inches. So when I use the word moral, I am talking about something that contributes to something's health, wealth, security, happiness.
I'm going to go with morality and stuff. And sorry, I'm not trying to frustrate you here.
Okay.
But it just seems if it's still like that's the axiom, and you're saying it's not an axiom, it's a definition. But you're saying that's just how it is. That's just how the universe is. And I'm kind of saying like, why is the universe this way? Why should it be that way? We've actually found.
Well,
that
are you
humans-
asking when you say why the universe is this way? Are you asking like, so if I chop Fassad's head off, you're asking why is it that he dies?
Sorry, Fassad.
Why
again.
is it not good for
It's
Fassad to get his head chopped off?
I'm used to
Yeah.
it to the threats.
And look, and again, I just feel as if you're throwing out there, like it seems to be a big assumption that can't quite be justified.
Do you,
I don't-
think
I
saying that a foot
and-
is 12
and
inches, is that an assumption?
I'm gonna move away from this here in just a second, but I want to
Okay, go
ask
ahead,
a
go
question to hopefully clarify.
It's fair enough.
Why is those
I
things
don't
on the shelf
know if I
behind you
was able-
books?
In this whole interaction, I don't know if I was able well enough to maybe just say what I feel as if isn't quite gelling there is like kind of just the presupposition of it, like at the rock bottom base. This is just how it is, and this is what we're aiming for. Okay.
Right. But like,
So
let me ask
why-
you this: why are those things on the shelves behind you? Why are they books?
Why are they books?
Yeah, why are
Okay,
they books?
Because and you want to say they just are books.
Well, no.
They
That's
just-
that's how we've defined them, right? We agree to a definition of what a book constitutes, right?
I'm trying to go further back to say, but why? Like, because I don't know. Human flourishing might not be the best way to look at the best for all of existence. Because I mean, I don't know. Even under COVID,
But I don't think you understood his analogy. Like this is functionally equivalent. So, is it the things behind you? Like, is it just an axiom? Is it an assumption that those are called books?
But let me ask you, okay, guys, and I do want
Can
to
you,
move on.
can you answer my question?
No. We've defined these as books. We decided to label these books. They could have been labeled bubbly, as you said. We've decided
Yes.
to label books.
Yes,
But
and
where
that
did
is
they come from? Where did they come from? There was a sentience. There was a mind behind it. There was something at some point in time. Someone discovered how to print them. Someone discovered how. And I mean, I know it was a big process in language. And I mean, we're not even sure how language develops in, like we,
And-
like science.
And now,
still isn't
can I
sure-
contrast that? Can I contrast what you said with morality? You said like
Yeah.
there was a sentience behind him. Someone wrote the books and all that kind of stuff. No one decided that chopping Fassad's head off is bad for his health. That's not a result of a decision. That's just reality. That's why when you asked earlier, what is the foundation for the system? It's just reality. It
It's
just is.
reality.
Banging
And-
you in the head with a brick is going to harm you. It wasn't a result of a decision. It's just the way it is. Your
And again-
biology functions in a way that getting bashed in the head is bad for you. It just is. It's
Just
the
is.
reality.
But-
It's just the reality.
And you're saying, but is it immoral? And you're saying, yes, on our definition, it is immoral because it doesn't contribute to your well-being.
Because that's when we say morality, that's the phenomenon that we're talking about.
And again, I'm at the back to say, but there's a mind. If you look at the books, there's a mind behind them. There's a reason that the books exist is because they were, like there is
reality.
The
Do you think
state of
reality is because of a mind?
But we're talking about the state of affairs itself. We're not talking about like the actual books themselves. We're talking about like what is the concept of a book itself. Like we're not talking about a specific book or like whatever. And just like when we're talking about
book, wrapped up in there is this idea that it has been produced by a mind. You know what I mean? And
do you think reality has been produced by mind? Did a mind decide that cutting Facad's head off is bad for him?
This is why I wanted to just get away from it altogether, because we're still spinning.
And this is where it is going to pivot more to me now. So, I think honestly that all of reality. I don't know if you guys do much of the Babylon Bee. It was it's like a Christian satire site, and they
it's like the Christian version of the Onion.
Yeah, it's the Christian version of the Onion. I think maybe even better than the Onion. But
no,
again, I might be biased
come on.
I might be biased. I just remember
you're undoubtedly biased there. The Onion has produced some of the greatest literary pieces in history.
What did they say? This is about Can you believe 4 years ago now? But like the Babylon Bee was running what was the one thing it was running? It said Trump seen reading coup d'etat for dummies. You know what I mean? What was the other one? When they were looking at getting Biden elected, it was like man who's been in politics his whole life promises to fix politics.
That's what I was gonna say. Like Babylon Bee kind of turned into like a right wing satire places that it's less Christian. But go ahead.
They do seem to still lampoon everyone. You know what I mean? And
I don't feel like that. I feel like they just target the left. But go ahead, just make your point though.
But then I was getting to the one that always stuck out to me, and many a true word said in jest and all of those things. It was atheist demands evidence for God and rules out the entire universe. You know what I mean? And
sure.
Again,
now explain how the universe is evidence for God.
As a Christian, it's like the fact that we are here. I'm not going to find. Sorry, guys. My brain. I'm actually a school teacher, and I swear, my synapses are just dying on me. I think the kids are going to actually see the deterioration of my mind in real time, because I've been teaching some of them since like grade 4. Now they're like in grade. Well, it's been 6 years, like grade 10, and I can't find the words. But
let's say the universe exists. Therefore, God. Can you fill in the middle?
For me, like the universe exists, and therefore God is the best explanation for the universe to be here.
Why?
I really do. For me, it's like you really have all of this, and again, that seems to be what you've also done with morality.
Can you explain how God is the best explanation?
Can you give a better explanation?
Why not?
But I don't have to. So right now, you've jumped into abduction, right? Which is the weakest form of reasoning. And you've said, not only does the universe require an explanation, but I've figured out the best one. And I don't even have a reason for it, but can you give me a better one? And sure, yeah, I've got
a reason. I think the universe. You've heard these and it hasn't convinced you, okay? And if I may say,
which ones?
No, I'm just saying you've probably heard whatever I'm going to throw to you. I'm sure you've interacted with it already, and I will. I'm not going to be able to get like the technical terms. Oh my gosh!
I promise you, what you give, I'm not going to just say neither Facade nor I are going to say we're not convinced. We will point out there's either a fallacy in the argument, or there's something that you're saying that is scientifically inaccurate. I promise you, both of us will do that.
The other thing is, remember, keep this in mind. Just as a I don't know, it's not quite a caveat. It's maybe more like a footnote. Remember that flat earthers also find all the reasons and all issues with all the evidence we have for the fact that we're living on a spherical universe. I mean, not universe.
They
planet.
don't. There's a lot of things flat earthers can't explain. But let's get to your evidence.
I'm just saying. I do believe that God is the best explanation. You've even said you don't have to give.
I'm asking, I know you believe that, but I'm asking why. Can we get to the evidence?
The universe's beginning, the intrinsic, like if you look at all of the factors of it with regards to the strong and weak gravitational force, the rate of expansion,
Well,
all of that.
tell us what about that? Let's just pick one. Let's pick one. You talk about this the strong interaction, right? Okay, so what is it about a gluon that makes you think that there's a God?
What I'm just getting look, I'm throwing it up because I want to get back to the morality issue. Is
Okay.
that I think that the fact that we can look at these things and reason it and say this is good and this is bad, this is good and evil even, and I know you don't like using that term, but the way that we have to apply our minds to like actually sort through these things probably indicates that a mind is behind the whole issue.
No, the problem is that with your God, my system would say that he's evil. Matter of fact, it's not even just like he's just kind of evil. He would be the most evil person, the most evil being to ever exist.
And
Like by
that's just-
far worse than Stalin or Hitler. He's killed more people. He's torturing infinitum people in hell right now. That would be the most immoral being. He's as far away from moral as I could think of. That's why I can say that it's unlikely that I get my moral system from him. Because he would perfectly meet the moral system if he was the foundation of it. But he doesn't. He fails headlong.
But so he would perfectly meet your arbitrary system.
You were just saying it's not my arbitrary system. You had just said that you think that my morals come from God, and what I was doing was explaining to why that's unlikely because God doesn't meet the moral system.
But again, I
So
think that
so you can like you can bash the system as like you don't like it or whatever, but you can't say it comes from God. You can't say that.
okay, maybe I can. Maybe I can. Look, there are a few. I mean, obviously, replete issues. But let me put it this way. Okay, and look, I can boil it down to this, and then we can maybe look at specifics. But this is one specific. The reason it's wrong to rape and torture a baby for fun is because God will never rape and torture a baby for fun. It's just not in his nature.
But
It's
so
not in his-
here's the thing. So raping and torturing a baby for fun, it's not in my nature either. But it wouldn't matter. That's why yours is subjective, because maybe God wouldn't rape and torture a baby for fun, but he would torture it for like his namesake. He would torture it for his own glory. He
Look,
does
I'm
do
just-
things like that.
At the same time, you're throwing that out. And yes, okay, you did ask for a definition, and let me be clear: biblical God, Protestant, like obviously from like Protestant Christianity, all of those things. So those assumptions you made
Do
were
you
all
believe
correct.
humans
you know,
have free
you know what I'm
will?
saying? Jesus, God incarnate. Yes, I actually believe that a Jewish carpenter 2,000 years ago was God incarnate. Just to confirm, Tribulate, you mentioned you don't think that Jesus exists, as in you do believe in the historical Jesus of Nazareth. You don't believe that he was God incarnate, or you don't believe that any Jesus existed.
Jesus is God. That violates logic. It's the hypostatic union is the problem. That he's above 100% God.
And what I'm asking is, you do believe that a guy named Jesus existed, and people thought that eventually thought that he was God.
I'm not convinced that a historical Jesus of Nazareth existed, but I mean, it wouldn't be a problem. Just like I believe the Prophet Muhammad exists. I believe Joseph Smith exists. It doesn't give any credence to the metaphysical claims behind them.
I understand. I'm just trying to confirm that, like you obviously don't believe that he was God, but you do believe that there was the historical person of Jesus. There was.
I am not convinced of that, but there could be. I am not convinced of it.
But you are convinced that Muhammad existed, and you are convinced that. Well, I mean, we know, like, and Joseph Smith, because obviously
Yeah.
that's close.
Yeah, because those guys come way later on. We have much more evidence. Like the Prophet Muhammad did a bunch of things. He affected the world in drastic ways that we can verify. Joseph Smith, he's only was like 150 years ago.
Yes.
So there's much more record of him. But it doesn't mean anything. Even if someone proved like for 100% certainty that Jesus was a real person, it wouldn't mean anything.
So 20 minutes later, I have a question. Why should I care about your God's moral system?
Yes, we like all these tangents, and I'd actually love to unpack some of that. I don't know if there will be another time to do this, and I can only do it while I'm on leave and everything, because I don't know. Like, I guess there would have to be like a different. I can't believe we've been chatting for like an hour and a half, and I don't know if I've even said much of anything.
So can you
like I'm
try
talking
to
about
answer
the
my
historicity
question
and
real
everything.
quick?
Why should we care? I think.
Why should I care about your God's moral system?
Well, I think that the whole basis for the morality is like it goes back again to his nature. Goes
But
actually back to his
why
nature.
should I care about that?
God would never murder anyone, hence murder is wrong. But
But-
no, again, but because like,
What do you think murder is?
Triple A, stop.
Okay.
I'm not going down that tangent. I don't care. Why should I care?
why should you care?
Yeah. Why do I give two flying ducks about what your God says? Why should I have why should he bear any credence on the life that I live? What possibly does he have to hold over me that another random person with their own moral system does not have? Why should I
Well,
care?
I thought I'd already answered that. He's the basis for your morality. The reason you believe that it's wrong to rape and murder a baby is because in his nature he would never do that.
Well, so since I don't believe that your God exists, I don't believe I can get a moral system from him. And since I believe that your God is a moral monster, I think that my moral system would be really, really inconsistent with your own God's. And even then, that doesn't tell me why I should or shouldn't care about what your God says. I need to know why I should care. What's going to happen if I just disobey your God forever? What's the worst thing that could possibly happen?
May I just say, but on your system, there's no reason for me to care about your system because you can't give me an ought.
Sure.
You can't give me an ought.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
You're damn right.
And yes, great. Now,
Thank-
why,
Okay.
Please give us a
that's
ought.
the end. Your turn. Give me an ought. Why should I care about your God and his moral system?
Okay. Whew. How am I going to come? No, it's good. It's good. It's actually like I said, the reason
100%, I agree.
Look, the reason I want to be is because I'm trying to think. Why do I care? I care about his system. Let me just say me, because I don't know if I can then extrapolate that to where you're at. I believe that as creator of the universe, we have an obligation to, a fealty that is owed God because He's created us.
I don't care about what
I
he's
don't care
owed.
about the fact that he created us.
Hey, guys, I know you don't care,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't care. If
Why
that
why
makes
should
sense.
I care?
That's not my goal.
I know it's not your goal, but again,
why
can we judge?
should I care? There's a difference there. I don't care. Why should I?
Do you value truth?
That-
No.
That's a different question. That's a value question, right? Now you're getting to a value system. You're not getting to a I value truth. Now what?
Again, I would have to say as well that the values that we have, and you said we can judge whether values are moral or immoral.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Again,
I said just a specific goal. If your goal would detribute to well-being, you could say it's an immoral goal. Like Hitler's goal was immoral.
And look, I think that the most moral thing you can do is obviously follow God. And you say, well, I don't care, and why should I? It's like at the end of the day, if you've decided not to, it doesn't mean that your decision not to is a good decision.
But
at the end of the
I'm
day.
not asking. And like again, it sounds pedantic, and I don't mean it to be. It's just that it's not. It's more of a genuine curiosity as to why you think I should care.
Right? It's a great question. It's a great question. I guess I'm just pointing out that if you've decided already that you don't care, that you don't want anything to do with him, I'm not too sure what I can say to convince you that you should.
Right, but
The
like
fact is-
that's kind of the nature of value, right? So like if you've already decided that you don't value human life, then it doesn't matter what I say, you're not going to value human life, right? So but I'm asking you, if you were setting in motion the conversion of an atheist, or the conversion of an agnostic, or the conversion of a smart but unknowing child that's coming to you with genuine concern and questions, and he's saying to you, I really want to know, why should I care at all about what God says? Like, why should it matter to me? Even though he created everything, I can do whatever I want, and it doesn't seem to matter. Like, what I'm doing and what your God is doing are completely separate things. Why should I care what he does or what he thinks?
I would go along these lines. Look, I mean, I guess there are a couple of ways, and I know you're going to shoot down each of them because you've decided to shoot down each of them already.
I'd like to hear them before I shoot them down.
But in all fairness, as I mentioned, as creator of the universe, we owe him fealty. I think the reason you think murder is wrong is because in the heart of God, and I mean, look, if you read Dominion by Tom Holland, you do see a lot of our values have been very influenced by the Christian church, even in a post-Christian society.
But not God. Like I don't think flooding the earth is a good thing to do. Nor do I think slavery is good. There's tons of things that God does that. So
I guess we could actually, maybe we should have come in here and said, let's just discuss the flood. Let's just discuss slavery. But I think that as creator, he's owed our allegiance. I think that we actually are, he's created us.
That's if you value.
Yeah, if we value. But I'm saying I think we should value it. I'm getting to the place where I think you should value it because it is the source of who you are. It's like, I'm sure you've heard the whole thing is like, if you want to know what your purpose is and all of these things, you look at the purpose of anything. You look at its, like the manual that comes with it, and that explains to you what it is and what the purpose is. And you're only really going to find that if you actually understand who your creator is and why he has you here, to one degree. That might not be good enough. So as creator, then obviously as redeemer, I mean, I'm convinced, and today I can see now, look, from any historical point of view, even if you don't believe that he was God, and I know that doesn't prove that he is God, but there was a man named Jesus of Nazareth, and I think what we have in the Gospels, and it's another discussion for another time, so this is more just statements. What we have in the Gospels in the New Testament is a very historically credible account of what this person did. But I believe that it was actually God as our creator. We actually owe him our allegiance. He has a claim on us as our creator. The same way that if I make something...
Is the short version of this so I don't go to hell?
I'm getting there, but I'm saying more than that. Before that, there's also, he redeemed us. He actually died on the cross
so I don't
to
go
redeem
to
us.
hell.
And I know you don't believe it. I know you don't believe
That's
it.
also based on metaphysical claims that haven't been proven.
Irrelevant. Just ignore what he just said, please. Ignore what Triple A just said, because I'm going to ask you a better question. What if I don't care about my own well-being?
Excuse me?
What if I don't care about my own well-being?
Well, we usually have a don't we label people like that as psychopaths or sociopaths?
We talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it earlier. Psychopathy. It's literally the failure to empathize with other humans.
Yeah, and now should a person empathize? And you can't get to the should. You know what I mean? And I understand that a person has.
I'm asking. Let's say I'm in that situation. Now, what are you going to threaten me with? Because hell's off the table.
No, but I'm not. I haven't even gotten to hell. I haven't even threatened you with hell. I'm saying
you started with the redemption story. We know the Bible probably as well as you do, not to be rude, but like we've been there a million times. The redemption story is all about saving us from the sin that we've been born in, and Jesus came and died for that sin to wash away our sins and become the atoning sacrifice for those sins to save us from an eventual hell. That hell is what you're trying to say, and you're not using. I use the term "threaten" very lightly. That threat of hell, if I don't care about myself, means nothing.
I was getting there, Facade, and if you don't believe it, remember, like when we look at like you said, the sociopath, the psychopath,
it doesn't matter.
There's something wrong there. There's an issue.
Here's the thing: like, it doesn't matter if you believe it. The problem is the problem he's pointing out is like if someone doesn't value their own well-being, then there's not going to be an ought for them to be moral. There's nothing that you could do on our system, nor on God's. There's no way God could threaten them. He can burn them in hell. The God doesn't care about his own well-being. Remember, So there's nothing he can do. This is a problem inherent in both of our systems.
Right.
So
And
you
I'm
were
just trying to point out that if I don't care about burning in hell, then God's threat of putting me there for not living up to his expectations or following his rules or doing what he says or whatever you want to say, Jesus offering his blood as a sacrifice to atonement of my sins, etc., however you want to word it, if for whatever reason I go to hell but I don't care about my well-being, it does not matter because I don't care. I don't care that I'll be burning for all eternity. It does not matter to me. I have no feeling about that whatsoever. Therefore, your threat of hell, or God's threat of hell, means nothing. There is nothing your God can threaten me with that would bother me, because you could walk up and put a gun to my head and say, I'm going to kill you dead in the street if you don't do XYZ, and I'm going to be like, I don't care if you do that. And then you blow my head off. It doesn't matter.
There's no threat,
and the threat
nor
of hell
bribe,
doesn't do
no
anything
promise
further than
could
that.
could ever do anything for him.
And yeah, and now, as you guys pointed out, that probably indicates that there's still something wrong there. That isn't the correct response to that very real threat of having your head blown out.
But that
I'm saying
doesn't change things, though.
Hey, you asked. I'm just saying that indicates that there's a problem with the person who is a psychopath. We look at it. We say he's not contributing to human well-being, the individual well-being. He doesn't care. There's a problem there. It's immoral. It's immoral because he doesn't want to see people's well-being furthered. So
But
I'm just
why
saying,
should that person
But they're
care
not
about
at
what your
all.
God says?
Which is
you guys have said you don't care and there's no threat and you don't care. I'm saying that's a sinful. I would say that's a sinful response, indicating a problem on your side, not on God's side. And I mean, even if you don't believe it, and I know you don't believe it, but I'm just saying that doesn't change the fact that we still owe Jesus fealty, and the fact that he did die for us means that we're doubly, we owe him doubly. First as our creator, then as our redeemer.
All right,
I don't
so
believe that.
a
Doesn't mean
couple-
that it isn't true.
A couple quick questions, because I think we're close to the end anyway, if I could. Do you think that God is the source of morality? Do you think, like, God says something and it is moral?
And if I may say, and then I understand that we then have to look at not necessarily each individual thing. I was going to ask this about the flood. Do you think it would be good if all immorality was removed from the earth?
so that. Well, it depends on how you do it. If you remove all immorality by destroying all life, no. And if I'm God and I'm all powerful, there are tons of ways I can remove immorality without killing everybody. And matter of fact, in the last pages of the Bible, that's exactly what God does. He puts people in heaven. He doesn't have to commit mass murder to end all immorality.
Wayne, I would say that what God did was not murder. Because remember, like, for example...
Okay, well, he doesn't have to commit mass killing to do that.
But again, has to. It depends on what he... maybe we should have led with this stuff.
So,
Maybe we should-
anyway, to continue my question, if I could.
Actually, my wife just sent me some eyeballs. I gotta go ahead and get off the stream. Hey, but y'all can keep going. Thanks for coming on the show, Liam. But I want to get you back on and really soon while you're still on leave. That way we can come on the show. But
it's until 10th of July. Okay, so cheers.
Okay, but till 10th of July.
I'm just saying, let's be in touch again on, well, I guess we got WhatsApp now. We can maybe send something for next week and the following week. We can maybe do 2 more if you want me on. I don't know if I was even...
Okay. All right.
If you think I was on, would be happy to come back. We can maybe then look at some other stuff.
All right.
Yes,
sure thing. I do. My wife just sent me the alarm. I gotta get ready to go. All right. Well, yeah, we'll be in touch, Liam.
Maybe we can lead off with these questions and we actually start there next time. Okay.
Most
I'm
definitely.
done with that.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, thanks, Liam.
Sorry that it was so short there, man.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Well, thank you for coming out on...
The actual questions for me, and then I hope I didn't seem evasive. I was just still trying to build a bit of a scaffolding so we could get into
No,
it.
it seemed... yeah, I mean, like, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. It's just as we kind of develop and unfold these questions, it's just obviously you want to... Like, and AAA is probably as bad, if not worse, than I am at doing it. is that we feel we have to kind of lay the groundwork of what we mean before we say what we mean, and then clarify what we mean to say what we mean to say what we mean.
I asked the question, and I know, like, it's like, hasn't this been done enough? I should have maybe watched some more of your videos.
Yeah, I mean,
the
the morality thing keeps happening. I think the God course is an interesting one that we could go down. I'd love to kind of pick your brain and just kind of go from there. The real question ultimately is, and we can go into like a full-on discussion with it if you have time and you'd like to come back. But the question ultimately I was trying to get to is, do you think that, like, if God says something, it is moral? So, for instance, when God commanded, like, the Israelites to do an action, was that a moral action?
And I mean, is this something that we should do next time when Tribulate is with us? Or
yeah, I'm
I mean,
down. I was just looking for more. Like, I don't necessarily, and like, I know you're gonna want to, but and don't take this wrong. You don't have to. Just looking for more of a yes or no, not a justification, because that's gonna tell me a lot about your belief system.
I don't think that God could turn around and make adultery moral. I don't think that him simply declare that. I don't think that's how it is. I think it comes, remember, I think that the source of all our morality and the fact that we have a moral sense, and all humans everywhere have had a moral sense, except for the psychopaths and the extreme outliers, is because he himself is moral. If that makes sense. Like, he in his nature is moral. So the commandments he gives, the instructions he gives, flows from a moral base from there. And obviously we can then discuss, how was it moral? But I would be like, it was maybe immoral not to, punish the Canaanites that way. And I know we might disagree on that, but at least I could give you my thoughts on it, or where I come from. And obviously,
Sure.
Push back and
So
all of those things.
I mean, where that ultimately goes, and the reason I asked the question in that way is ultimately is like, could God command something? Like, I know, for instance, like you say, like, God didn't murder when he flooded the earth. But for instance, like, what if God had commanded Cain to kill Abel? Right? Like, Cain, when, like, back in the Garden of Eden, like, if God commanded that, like, that's essentially a murder, right? Like, and you would say, like, in the sense of Cain and Abel, I know Abel was the better brother, but, like, let's flip the roles. Let's say, because Cain didn't have an offering for God, Abel was commanded by God to kill Cain because he was unworthy of God's praise, right? Could God command that without any issue?
And again, no, God can't command us to do sin. I mean, or evil, or I mean, I guess on your definition it would be immoral. I'm trying to use your terminology to make sure that we're both kind of saying the same thing.
I'm less of a stickler about, like, good and evil when it comes to talking about, like, a deity, especially the Christian God. So, like, the reason I asked that is, like, that seems that it would put limitations on things God could do. I assume God is omnipotent in your.
But again, look, man, omnipotence means God can do whatever is logically possible. And why does it work like that? Because God himself is the foundation of logic. Like, it actually proceeds from him, and so forth. So
that would be a really interesting conversation to have. I would say that, like, logic has to at least be present at the, like, omnipresent at least at the time of God. Otherwise, you have contradictions.
Yeah. If I heard you correctly, I think I can agree with that, because God cannot do something that is illogical. Like, he can't make,
like before the law of definition, God couldn't be God because you don't have a definition for God.
I was going to be like, like the whole thing is, can God make a stone heavier than himself?
Yeah, like, that's just like begging at a logical question, right? Yeah, that's a silly argument.
Yeah, that's So my answer to that is usually like, yes, he can, and then he can lift it. So
yeah.
if my answer is as illogical as your question, it's because it's an illogical question.
Right.
So with regards to morality, from what I can see, God, and it actually says God himself. It actually says in Timothy, was it James? It says God will never tempt you. God doesn't tempt you to evil, because he himself cannot do evil. And that isn't a limitation on God. It's actually a weakness the fact that I can do evil is not something that makes me stronger than God. It makes me weaker than God.
Right, because you're separated
and
from
it'll-
him. Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the reason I was going that direction though is like, for instance, if God commanded Cain to kill Abel, then it would have been a justified moral act that Cain did, and I would say that you'd agree with that if you look at basically any Old Testament passage in which God commands the Israelites to go and conquer a land. Because there are times in which he commands them to not only kill the soldiers and take over the land, like in Jericho, but like in instance of the Amalekites, where he says kill everyone, women and children
Yeah.
included. So
It was it was only in the hill country. It was only in the hill country. But again, that your objection to that is predicated on the idea that they didn't deserve that.
no. Whether not really, but B, do you think like an infant could deserve being murdered by outsiders? Do you think that young women and children could deserve it?
Can I get pedantic? Like, it doesn't say infants; it just says young and old, and then it depends
it
on
says
how far
kill
you
everyone. And
again,
as a matter of fact,
responses-
later in Second Kings, when David doesn't kill everyone, he gets punished for doing so. Like, we have multiple instances in which it says kill everyone, including the women and children.
Yeah,
And
but it
we
doesn't
assume
say
there are
infants.
infants in the like. You're not going to exclude infants in this. Like children,
I know.
there's no
I'm just saying,
differentiation in the
if I was
Hebrew.
going to be pedantic, I'm just saying if I was going to be pedantic, it doesn't say infants. The infants are not mentioned in the command
That's
to kill.
because there isn't a word for infant in the Hebrew that they're going to use to distinguish that from children.
We had babies or newborns. But my point is this.
That would also include pregnant women, by the way.
Yeah. Again, it assumes that they didn't deserve it.
Now, again, how would infant in utero deserve being punished by an oncoming slaughter of an army?
Are you pro-life?
I'm pro-choice. That could be a very complicated subject that we could go into a whole, probably 2-hour discussion on.
Yeah.
I'm
Look,
pro-choice, but
again,
it's not because I'm pro-killing children. If that helps, it's because
yeah,
it's
no,
because
no,
I'm
no.
pro-bodily autonomy.
Yeah, dude. Look, we can look as a former fetus. I'm very much pro-life. I think that former fetuses should be talking up for current fetuses and all of that stuff.
I'm with you 100%. I agree. I think that it's a more moral thing to let fetuses grow to adulthood. But I would say that as a person who values bodily autonomy, that neither I nor a fetus have a right to a woman's body, and neither does anyone else.
And I mean, I don't know. We're opening up all of this stuff. Is this still streaming, or are we just chatting?
We're streaming, but we can stop streaming, and I got to go in a couple minutes anyway. I just wanted to kind of pick your brain and just see where your views are. I'm sure AAA will watch and kind of listen.
There's all of these things. Look, I do think that God, from a he doesn't command murder. He does command killing in very specific. It's not an ongoing forever kind of a command. It's not as if Christians can use those
To justify killing
verses
in the
to
future,
justify
right?
their own ideas.
Yeah.
Look, and I mean, this is where it maybe becomes a bit funny, but like I might
No.
also
I
listen
was
to
just
someone
laughing
who-
because like God could command it still. That's kind of where I'm going with that.
I think whatever God commands would be moral. It would only be a matter
Right.
of
But that's the problem. So if God commanded you to kill someone now, then it would be moral for you to kill someone, and it would not be murder according to your definition.
But God, like this is what I'm trying to say. Look, I understand. I'm just trying to see. I think I don't know if it's because it's it's 2 o'clock on this side, but I mean that's just an excuse. I actually had a nap before this whole thing, so it's probably just my synapses again. God has got it wouldn't be an arbitrary commandment. It's not that because God has said it that then suddenly magically becomes real. It's just that the only commandments God would issue from his nature would conform to his holiness and righteousness.
Sure. So like because morals flow from him and expand from him, then any act that he commands would therefore be moral. I'm fine with that definition and that acceptance of it, but that means that anything that God commands, whether you think about like, and I don't like to go the direction of, but if that included stomping on a baby's head, then that would still be a moral action because it flowed from God's command. Now, I understand that you say that that's not in the Bible and that that's not something God necessarily claimed, and I'm not saying he did. I'm saying there are times in which God did do things like flood the entire earth, which would have killed infants, children, babies, etc. There are times where he commanded Israel to kill the Amalekites, in which he told them to wipe out the entire place, including women and children. There were times where he commanded Israel to kill all but the virgin women and keep them for yourselves. So it's not that it's what the problem I have with the morality based on your God is that it seems like it's a delving into a system of who has the most might. Might makes right, because God is all powerful, therefore he says what is right. And then B, you really have to determine whether God said something or not to determine whether it's moral or not. Because in the sense of, if I said to you, like, hey, the Germans went into Poland and they killed everyone they saw, including infants and children, you'd say, that's horrible. That's an atrocity, right? That's terrible. World War II, the Holocaust, terrible things. And then I say, hey, the Israelites went into the Amalekites' land and killed all the women and children. And you'd be like, oh, well, God commanded it, so it's fine.
But look, first of all, there is a difference in that the Germans were not commanded by God to do that.
How do you know that?
Well, if
Like-
is it a legitimate question? Is it a legitimate question?
Legitimate question.
God only gave these commands in a specific thing about the conquest. Okay, so it wasn't an ongoing
So
forever.
do you think God is
do this
incapable of speaking to people now?
Not incapable. He speaks through the Bible now.
But he doesn't do direct and divine revelation now?
Mainly through the Bible, and whatever he reveals now has to conform to the Bible, New Testament interpreting Old Testament.
So
Before
if
you went
Hitler
on-
read the Bible, which he did because he was a Catholic, and he interpreted the scripture of command and conquer.
You asked a question. I just want to answer the question, and maybe we can call it a night there.
Yeah, sure.
Look at how these commands came. Who did these commands come through? It was Moses and then affirmed by Joshua. Why should they have listened to them? Well, when a guy leads you out of Egypt and we see the water turning into blood, and I know that you don't believe that this actually happened. I'm just trying to use from the context of the account. Can we maybe see where it was coming from? When you see water turning to blood, where you see him saying, listen, it's going to be dark for 3 days, except in the land of Goshen. When he says, listen, unless you put blood on your doorpost, the firstborn of everyone is going to die. You know what I mean? And these things are actually happening. You know what I mean? So it's not just like, oh, he was once off lucky, there happened to be an eclipse. It's like, no, these things, he's actually foretelling these things because God is telling him to say it, and then God is doing it. When he leads you out and the the Egyptian army is coming after you, and you're standing in front of the Red Sea, and I know it's the Sea of Reeds, blah, 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 but let's take the account at face value. And he says, and the sea is actually parted. You understand? The sea is actually parted, and he leads you through that. And then he says, by the way, this God that has, said all of these things were going to happen, has now also said that we have to go and take the land over there. And he gives a reason for it. He says and this is my other thing, sorry, like I'm jumping around. And then for Joshua, before he entered into the promised land, how do we know that this guy's still hearing from what God is saying? Well, guess what? The river Jordan parted while it was in flood. So there's actually some credentials here. It's not just someone in a bedroom somewhere hearing and then deciding to go do something. There's actually, from their point of view, objective evidence that what he's saying is actually from a divine origin. It's not just someone having a sudden spasm. So maybe we should take that into account.
Would you say that, like, coming from a place?
If I may say, and then from like a moral viewpoint, if you look at the 10 Commandments, it's also a revelation, like an impersonal universe. This is something else I didn't really get into. An impersonal universe, why would it care about human well-being? So where does this come from? Where does this idea that this is a good thing come from? But maybe we can unpack that a bit more, but then we're going to go down this, we're just going to be stuck on the same thing going in circles. So I'm just saying, if we have those signs, and I think that there's a bit more legitimacy to be saying this same God that gave us the Ten Commandments is also giving us the order. And why did they go in there? Why were the Canaanites driven out? Because of their sin, because of their evil. I find that atheists generally are like, well, if God is good, why doesn't He destroy evil? God destroys evil in the flood, in the disposition of the Canaanites. Oh, how can God do that? So it just seems everyone is
Yeah,
unhappy.
I don't care about. I don't really care about all that. And I'm not going to use that
not-
argument. I think it's a poor one because I wouldn't say that God should destroy evil in the sense that He should murder people or kill people. Sorry, murder. He should kill people. But I would say that God could eradicate evil without killing a person. He just doesn't.
But the thing is, if God was to destroy all evil absolutely right now, we would all be dead.
You'd have heaven, right? Because there's no evil in heaven, right?
What I'm saying is, okay, and this is what I think is about the genius of it, and maybe we can unpack it. I feel bad that we're doing this without tribulation.
It's fine. I promise he'll watch this and he will undoubtedly have things to say about it.
Yeah. But one thing that has become very real to me is that with regards to you have an issue with hell because we don't see the holiness. We have issues with hell because we don't see the holiness of God. I honestly believe that that's what I deserve. And it's not torture for fun in hell. It's punishment for evil in hell.
It's punishment for something that you couldn't have controlled.
No, I can either reject or accept Jesus. And I mean, again, in our context,
Do you think you have free will?
I do believe that we are held accountable for our actions. So I lean on that while God is still in control. I believe that God is absolutely in control of everything while allowing us genuine free will.
What are your thoughts on like predestination?
I'm more Molinist than Calvinist or Arminian.
I mean, so you're aware that like Molinism, like the Jesuit monk that started Molinism, like was criticized highly by people like a Thomas Aquinas and others, but for saying that like that essentially limits God's authority and power.
If I may say, I think that God is so amazing that He finds ways to perfectly get His perfect, holy, good, righteous will accomplished, even through the actual free actions of sinful creatures.
Yeah, but by doing so, you're admitting that God can't truly be omnipotent because He can't control your actions.
He's decided not to. Not that he can't.
No. A Molinist would say that God cannot control your actions.
I said I'm more Molinist. I'm not saying I am absolutely 100% Molinist. I believe in God's sovereignty and deciding to work through people's free will.
It's a long one. It's not worth going into. I was going to point out. So, like, out of curiosity, what if Hitler took from 1918, which is when World War II ended, to 1939, which is when World War II started? Germany went from being devastated by war, being completely in a state of poor and homeless people, where people were using wheelbarrows of money to pay for bread, and instead of using money for food, they would use it for firewood. From that to being a superpower in 1939, what if Hitler took that as a sign from God that he was on his side to murder the Jews? You see what I'm saying? Like, we can take signs of, like, miraculous things. We went from literally poor, like, people using wheelbarrows to pay for bread and starving to death on the streets and using money for firewood, to literally a superpower that almost took over the entire known world in Europe. So I'm just saying, like, your signs and your miraculous statement, I find really hard to justify saying that, like, what if a God told me that? I also have problems with, like, things like Son of Sam, demons, etc., where you have this thing saying it's from God, or that you have other cultures, like, for instance, Islam, where they're not all Islam are Muslims, excuse me, but you have extremists that are blowing up buildings or blowing up themselves in the name of their God. I mean, the problem is, like, it's not that you have this other thing right. It's just that other people have these questions too. You seem like you're freezing. You should.
And these are good questions. These are good questions to ask. My point is also this: like I said, there was nothing miraculous. It was amazing. It was astounding, that in 20 years they could become a superpower. And I know, Hitler was Times Man of the Year in 1938. And if he had actually not, proceeded to try and take over the whole world and,
Not had a
do the
drug
third-
problem.
he would have probably been known as one of the greatest world leaders, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But my point is, you have to measure what you think God is saying to you against a correct interpretation of the Bible. Who says what it is? But in the New Testament, there is not one anywhere. There is not one command for us to go forth and kill people in the name of Jesus. It's a misapplication. The only time that it comes back and we see violence in the New Testament is when Jesus returns and he meets it out. And I can trust his judgment because he's God and I'm not. And so forth. And I know that might be an unsatisfying answer. And then how do we know the difference between which God is who? It would be, for me, the historical fact of the resurrection, which we could maybe get into at some point in time, which I'm sure
That should be a whole next episode. That's a different problem.
I was interested to hear that Tribulate is like, I'm not convinced that there was actually Jesus of Nazareth, which then puts you on the flat earther side of ancient historical inquiry. you know what I mean?
Flat Earth didn't actually become a thing until like the 1700s. So, and then it actually repopularized thanks to the internet. But nonetheless, I would say that like historically, I think there's good evidence that a historical Jesus existed. I have some severely big problems with the logic of the hypostatic union. So Jesus being fully God and fully man. I think that violates the laws of logic. I think you would also probably run into that problem if you've thought about it a lot. If you haven't, I'd recommend you do that.
I've thought about it quite a lot. And I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff. I wish I had. I just wish I had like the brain, like my brother has more of a brain where he actually like holds all the details like actually at his fingertips. But there's all these questions about what makes you human. What can you give up without
mine would be more like what makes you God, right? Because like I don't care that Jesus is a human. I'm fully accepting of that. That's easy.
And sorry, it's not fantastic. What is I've lost...
It doesn't really matter. It's fine. You can, whatever you want to call me.
No, but so I'm just terrible with names. It infuriates my wife. But no, the problem I was trying to do is this: if I was to cut off my legs, I wouldn't be any less human. If I was to lose the use of my eyes, I'm still human. If I was to, you even cut out my tongue. Now, most humans obviously have two legs and a tongue and can see with both eyes, but losing those faculties doesn't make you less human.
Right, but my problem isn't with the humanity of Jesus. My problem is with the godness of Jesus.
Listen to where I'm going. Listen to where I'm going with it. So the question is, what attributes could God give up and still remain God? You know what I mean? Like if there were certain things that God maybe doesn't have access to, but he's still God within himself. And I'm just thinking the hypostatic union on those things is whatever Jesus wasn't walking in still meant that he was able to be God. And I think that he didn't give up any of his godly attributes. He just didn't allow himself access to them. I mean, that's the whole Philippians 2 where he empties himself. So he does. It's sort of like me tying my hand behind my back if I'm going to go and now, play with my 6-year-old and wrestle with him a little bit. Actually, my kids are 8 and 10, just for, factual accuracy. And I'm just saying, it's amazing. It is a mystery, but it's not illogical that God could add humanity with himself without ceasing to be God, even though he allowed him.
I mean, like we typically define humans as non-gods and gods as non-humans, right? And like they can take on, like for instance, especially if you look at like demigods in ancient Greece or Rome, or you even continue on into like the Norse mythology, where you have some amalgamation of the two, but one cannot logically be both fully God and fully man, because both fully God and fully man means that fully man means fully non-God, and fully God means fully non-man.
And obviously now I'm thinking that you're defining it so as to exclude the possibility that it could be logically coherent.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because I would say that, like, by defining something as fully God, then you're eradicating the sense that they're human. Because, like, for instance, the attributes of your God, specifically in the Christian Bible, include, like, the beginning of everything, and lives eternally, and has omniscience, and omnipresence, and omnipotence, and stuff like that, right? And you could never say that about a human. You would have to strip away every aspect that makes God God to get to human, and then you would just have human. So you can't be both fully God and both fully man. It's a contradiction. It's like both being fully a car and being fully a kangaroo. Like, you just can't, like, you could have a kangaroo colored car, or you could have car parts in a kangaroo pouch, but you can't have a fully kangaroo and a fully car. Like, they're just two separate individual entities, right? And so
Yeah.
you'd have to take away so many aspects of a car or so many aspects of a kangaroo to make them one thing, and they would not both then be a full kangaroo and a full car.
So what I'm saying is, I think possibly, like, obviously false analogy, um, and as I was saying, more like we see that Jesus was still fully divine at like the transfiguration.
Jesus died.
There, there are these moments where he allowed his, godhood to actually, like, shine through, but he
Can
had
God
decided
die?
to. I'm just saying he decided, like, it's, I think Philippians 2 gives us the mystery, who, emptied himself, didn't allow himself to walk in it, but at any point in time he was able to pick it up again. Hey man, look, let's get into this. I wouldn't mind maybe just seeing where we want to go. What makes Christianity true? It would be the resurrection of Jesus. What is the historical basis for that? We can always maybe look into some of these things.
I
How
assume,
is it
are
ethical
you like
for
a
the
sola
Sodomites to have been
scriptura?
killed for those things?
Are you like a sola scriptura kind of guy, or only scripture?
Um, I'm quick to say yes, but I'm also to say, like, I think that everything that we have in the Bible is what we need for godliness and so forth. I also believe there's actually two books. It's the book of nature and the natural world that points towards God, and then obviously the Bible, I think, is God's clearest revelation of Himself to us, showing that He doesn't stand for sin, and that there is retribution for sin, and all of those things.
Yeah, I'd be
Are you
really
taking?
interested to go into like a deep dive of the Bible with you. I will warn you that both AAA and I are fairly well versed. I don't read it often anymore, but both he and I started in Christian homes and families, and
Yeah.
ended up going and majoring in college in biblical studies. And both of us were devout Christians until our 20s. So I'd recommend coming with all guns a blazing.
You take it from, well, I guess I'd want to know, like, on what basis, what was the new evidence that you discovered to show that the Bible isn't true, that the Gospels are not to be trusted? Like, did you
I mean,
just,
the
you know what I mean?
long and short of that is that I found not only things in the Bible that I would vehemently disagree with and not want to associate myself with the God thereof, but I also found discrepancies in the scripture itself, as far as like some of the things that it says as far as what can be true, and what cannot be true. And once you start to peel back the layers of uh, the fact that it's not, or at least I found it to be fallible, then you really start losing a basis for your belief in it, right? So if you've been told your whole life and you believed your whole life that you have this infallible object that tells you nothing but truth,
Okay,
and
fair
then
enough.
you find fault in that object, and you have questions about it, and you point out some start with simpler things, and then you go into some more complex things that the Bible does and says and holds, that are true, or even that it condones, even if it's Old Testament or whatever. Then you start to lose the value that you hold on this object, because it's no longer an infallible statement of place to stand.
Yeah. Were
And by
you,
doing so, I started deteriorating that, and then I started looking heavily into the origin and compilation and the actual writing of Scripture, and if you haven't done that, that is a twisty, turny, let's flip a coin kind of decidey.
No.
Oh
Yeah,
boy,
I mean,
you
it's
probably
interesting
like. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
disappoint you, but you don't know it as well as I do if you don't think that's true. There were books that were voted out of Scripture because of one verse. There were verses that weren't
But-
added to Scripture because
Where were they voted?
yeah,
Where
literally
were they
the
voted?
Council
Which
of
council?
Nicaea.
What? Where?
The Council of Nicaea.
The Council of Nicaea was just to discuss the divinity of Jesus.
You're talking about
it
in
was-
314.
Just hold on. The Council of Nicaea didn't discuss the books of the canon at all. That's an
You're talking about
historical fallacy.
in 314.
Oh, just go. Sorry, man. My kid's up and not feeling well.
No
He's just
worries.
vomited in the thing there. But,
Yeah,
but
you
dude,
can
I'm
get
just
out of
saying,
it.
look
You're
into it. I mean, if I may say, the moment you're saying Council of Nicaea, why didn't you go to the bathroom, boy? Council of Nicaea. I mean, if you're saying that was where they decided what books of the Bible, that's just
I'm
terrible,
saying that's where
terrible history.
specifically one book of the Bible was decided because I know which one it was and it wasn't included. But I mean, that's just me knowing the history of the origin of the compilation of the Bible. But
There was no question of the Council of Nicaea discussing anything about the books of the Bible.
you're
So I gotta go
incorrect.
talk to my kid.
There's a book discluded from the Bible specifically because of the Council of Nicaea. I can give you
No,
historical definitive proof of that.
It should be late to send it through to me because honestly, the Council of Nicaea didn't
I'll be
discuss
glad to
the
do that
canon
to
at
you.
all.
Yeah, I'd be glad
It was
to do that
it
for
was
you.
it was to discuss the Arian debate, the debate about Aria.
Yeah, I'm well aware that that was the purpose of it, but I'm letting you know that the Council of Nicaea decided to vote on the Book of Thomas. It was excluded because of one verse. Just so you're aware. You may not be aware of that. You also may not be aware that most Bibles in the United States, at least, included 88 books all the way up until 1865. If you think you're a 1611 King James user, then you're also incorrect because you don't know that that's what that came from.
No. I'm just saying it's historically inaccurate to say that the Council of Nicaea had any discussion about the canon. It was only they only discussed it in 481, and even that was ratifying an earlier list that had just look again. I've read about it. I just see the natural progression. I read a non-Christian talking about how the canon was formulated, and I mean obviously it's very obvious that anyway, obviously as a Christian that God was working. I don't know. It was general consensus.
Crazy how you
What
think
would
that
you
a general consensus by men 500 years after the fact decided what God got to say.
Again, this is what we have to get into, Shaman. My kid vomited, and I'm talking to you, but my wife is sorting him out.
No, you're good. You can get out of here. I appreciate you coming on, Liam.
Okay, blessings, man. Have a good one.
We'll talk
Thanks
to
for
you
that.
soon. Bye-bye. Well, hey, it's just me now, guys. Just wanted to say thanks for watching. We'll be on next week. Thanks for stopping by. Dan, thanks for joining us as always. We had a new chatter in the chat that said they were just here to vibe by the name of Sheena or Shina. Not sure how you pronounce it, but wanted to say hi and thanks for stopping by. Hoped you vibed well while we discussed morality and then got really off topic at the end. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys have